I've already lost my voice for the night, so this is just going to be really interesting. I have another scary story for you guys. Honestly, I just want to get right into the story. I feel like I'm going to pass out, and I feel like my voice is just going to leave me forever if I keep doing this. Wow, perfect fucking setting. Awesome. I can't wait to die. Oh my god, I can't believe I just caught that. There's a huge thunderstorm tonight. You think you guys are going to be scared by the jump scares of the thunderstorm? Think about how I feel. This is live, alright? I'm literally leaning back. I'm so tired, guys. I'm just gonna make myself nice and comfortable. Just gonna make myself at home. This is the finale to Jack and Lucy, a stalker in love with a murderer. My brother and Mr. Thompson had told me to wait for them to come up with a plan of action. But as I stood in the entrance of my house, my mind wandered. There I was, my brain trying to figure out a solution to the situation I was in. My mother's a killer that took away my father from me and turned me into a murderer without me even realizing. And now I have to wait for two people that might as well be strangers to me to help me deal with her. Deal with her. Never thought I'd ever talk about my own mother that way. Sure, as I got older, we spent less time together, but she was always there for me when I needed her the most. And now, all of a sudden, she's the villain. The situation was so fucked up. However, I've never been the kind to take orders from people, especially people I barely know. Now, finally home, the same home I'd lived in all of my life, it felt like a foreign place, like somewhere I no longer belonged. I averted my gaze to the window to see if it had started to rain outside. For some weird reason, it seemed like the rain was in slow motion. Despite my screwed situation, I was calm, and strangely felt ready for anything. Yeah, that's right. I'd adjusted myself in preparation to confront my own mother. The closed windows kept out the sound of the rain while I took off my shoes. I proceeded to walk through my now almost unrecognizable home. I was in that dark place again, a place I'd been staying in for so long. That dark place in my head where nobody could hurt me, where nobody could judge me. That cold and remote island in my mind where I was safe. I headed to our empty kitchen and picked out a sharp knife from one of the drawers. My mother, laying on the living room sofa, fast asleep, my soulless body stood above her, gripping the sharp blade that glistened in the darkness. She then slowly woke up, probably having felt my presence. "Jack? Is that you, sweetie?" she asked, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Her joyful expression as she realized it was me standing there changed once she saw the knife clenched in my fist. "Jack? What's wrong, baby?" Tears began to slide down my icy skin. "Why?" I asked. "What do you mean, honey? I don't understand. Did something Stop. Just fucking stop," I interrupted, all of my frustration boiling over my calmness. "Tell me the truth. For once, just please. I need to know, Mom. Did you kill Dad?" A putrid silence ensnared the room. After the single longest minute of silence I'd ever experienced, my mother started to talk. "So, they finally got to you, huh?" She began to elaborate. "I'm guessing you've met your brother, and the Thompsons. They probably told you about how I'm that infamous serial killer, and that I killed your father." "Yeah, they told me everything." "I see." She giggled in an attempt to hold back her tears. "Is it true?" I questioned, as her eyes fell to the ground. "Yeah, it's true." I could feel her sadness, like a terribly strong wind that she had kept bottled up inside. "Why did you do it, Mom?" I guess they wouldn't be able to tell you that side of the story, huh?" "I'm sorry, Jack. Judging by that knife in your hand, you must really hate me right now. I don't expect you to believe what I'm about to say, but..." Her eyes rose from the ground, looking into mine. My mother's beautiful eyes. Something I'd always been told by people that I'd met my mother was that we had the same eyes. And now, not only were our eyes equal in appearance, they were equal in pain. "I want you to know that no matter what you decide to do, I'll always love you, my beautiful Jack." She then began her story. Before I had been born, my mother had met my father at a park. They got to know each other, and not after long, they hooked up. Apparently, my father had gone through a divorce not too long ago, and just won custody of his only child at the time, my brother. They moved to this small town to start a quiet life, and at first everything was looking great. But happily ever after wouldn't be the case. After getting my mother pregnant with me, my father had started to see his ex-wife again. My mother caught on to him, though she never said a word. Ignored and lonely, that's when hell knocked on her door. After I was born, my father had continued to show little to no interest in me. while still neglecting my mother and carrying on his affair with his ex-wife. My father gave all of his attention to my brother and even hit my mother a couple of times when she tried to question him about his late-night whereabouts. This having become my mother's new, cruel reality, she started to look for solace and happiness in other places, or rather, a place where she could drown her sadness in exchange for false happiness. My mother started killing. The insanity of killing ironically kept her sane. However, her problems with my father wasn't the only reason she did those things. Ever since I had been nothing more than a speechless baby, I had enjoyed watching others in pain. She told me how I would laugh whenever she cracked her victim's bones, and that I found humor in seeing her victim squeal in agony. Although my mother knew what she was doing was wrong and screwed up, it made me happy and kept her mind off of her abusive relationship with my father. Eventually, though, he found out. My mother told me that once he had found out, he tried to kill me and her. He had found me playing with a decapitated hand and snatched it away from me in horror. Once I started to cry, his eyes went vicious, filling up with disgust. My mother had got home from work just in time to stop him from drowning me in the bathtub. And then, well, she managed to kill him after a long and wild struggle. After that, my brother ran away, and her serial killings became somewhat famous. Lucy's dad, Mr. Thompson, who had worked with my father and been his best friend for a long time, became suspicious of my mother. Though she pretended not to notice, she knew that he had taken in my runaway brother. Officially, my brother was confirmed missing, and after a long and unsuccessful search, later confirmed dead. Mr. Thompson, however, had kept on searching for my father's body. He wanted the evidence to put my mother behind bars. My mother also knew this, and to counter it, she hid the decapitated arm of my father's corpse in a way so that the police would never find it. And of course, she did it, leaving no trace of her interference. As I got older, my mother intentionally avoided the topic of my father, and made sure that I forgot all about having a brother. And although she herself had stopped killing, I continued to find enjoyment in harming other living things. My mother's love for me was so strong that she had accepted my love for killing, and decided to subliminally nurture my horrid hobby. Coming home late, working extra hours, and even not knowing that I basically had a torture chamber in our basement was all an act. She loved me, her beautiful son, so much that she allowed me to take the lives of others, simply for my own sadistic pleasure. After hearing her entire story, I stood there speechless, my face drowned in salty tears. Her story filled all the gaps of my brother and Mr. Thompson's side of the story. A relationship of abuse and lies created this predicament. My father wasn't some hero sheriff, maybe to the public, but in reality, he had been a bad father to me and a cruel, distant husband to my mother. Well, that's it, I guess. That's my story, Jack. Your serial killer mother that turned you into the same monster because she was weak. I'm so sorry, Jack. My mother fell to her knees, crying uncontrollably. However, I had already made my decision. I held the knife to my mother's throat as her tears ran down her face and neck, onto the surface of the sharp blade. I'm sorry, too. It was now about 4 a.m. The rain had stopped, and my house was cold. I took out my phone and dialed my brother's number. Jack? What's up, man? He answered, following up with a yawn. She's dead, I replied, without a tremor of emotion. What? What are you talking about? I killed her. Our mother. She's dead. I killed her with a kitchen knife. Finally grasping what I was talking about and understanding that I wasn't joking around, my brother's tone changed. I could almost hear him in deep thought through the phone. He went to go get Mr. Thompson and tell him about what I had done. I waited for a couple of minutes before getting a reply, this time from Mr. Thompson. I'm so sorry, Jack. Everything must have been going through your mind. I should have let you stay at our place, he said. What's going to happen to me now? I asked. I'm not sure. Right now I can't give you an accurate answer, but I want you to know that what you did wasn't wrong. You stopped a cold-blooded killer. And I know this is hard for you, but we'll sort this out, I promise. Then they told me we'd have to get rid of the body right away, that I should clean up, wrap up my mother's corpse, and head to their place. And so, I did just that, placing my mother in a sleeping bag that we used to use when we went camping. I loaded her into the trunk of my car and drove to Mr. Thompson's house. As I cruised through the empty streets, the sun began to rise. Its lights shone through my window, beautifully illuminating the inside of my car. It was like some divine entity was telling me that I had made the right choice. My brother greeted me outside as I pulled into the driveway and got out. "You okay, man?" he asked. "Yeah." "Okay, good. Everything's gonna be fine. Trust me." "Yeah." "Good. Well, let's get to it then. Did you put the body in the trunk?" he said while walking to the back of the car to open up the trunk. "Yeah," I answered once more. He then popped it open to see the sleeping bag in which my mother resided. "Okay, it's over, huh? Never thought I'd—" Before he could finish his sentence, I pierced his lung with my knife. His eyes enlarged in shock. "What?" he struggled, coughing up blood. "What are you doing?" I deepened the position of the blade inside of him and began to rotate it, inflicting extra pain to his body. A wide grin grew across my face. "What does it look like I'm doing, brother? Or should I say, stepbrother?" I could see all of the fear on his face as his eyes admitted the truth. My mother didn't lie, and even though he was in too much pain to speak, his eyes confirmed that I had been told the truth. He was my half-brother. My mother's story was true, and as she unzipped the sleeping bag and got out of the trunk to look at his pathetic face, I knew then and there I had made the right choice. After passing, we loaded his now dead body into the trunk of the car and shut it. "Well, there's 3 more of them in the house. Once we're done here, we can leave this place." My mother softly held my cheeks with her warm hands, her smile so pure and happy. "We'll go somewhere far away, just us. We'll live together, and this time we'll do it right." "I know," I answered, smiling back at her. The final saga of our pain, the end of our misery was close. This would be the last time we'd kill, and after this, we'd be free. Together, my mother and I would be able to run away and finally start a new life. A good life. This was it. The last time I'd ever enter Lucy's house. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Thompson, and Lucy, they were the last people we'd have to kill. With my mother standing right behind me, I knocked on the door. Mrs. Thompson came to open it, which would be the last thing she'd ever do as I impaled her with my knife, killing her before she could even react. We then entered the house, quietly shutting the door behind us. I turned to my mother. 2 left. My mother looked at me with a genuine smile, the kind of smile I had forgotten existed. "Are you nervous, Jack?" she asked in a soothing voice. Maybe. 2 left, huh? Mr. Thompson and Lucy were the last ones we'd have to kill. Once that was over, my mother and I would be free. Freedom, I wondered. What did it even truly mean? We scanned the kitchen and the living room cautiously for any sign of them, but no one else seemed to be on the bottom floor. "They must be upstairs," my mother whispered as she signaled our move to the staircase. "We should Fuck." A chilling presence emerged from behind, and it held a gun to my head. "So this is what you had planned, huh?" Mr. Thompson's tone almost sounded animalistic, like a wild beast. My heart charged at my chest like a racehorse. I wanted to remain calm. I wanted to think of a way out, but there was no escape. Not this time. "Ha, Jackie boy, what are we gonna do with you? First you lie to us, then you kill your own brother, and my wife?" Mr. Thompson let out a laugh so vulgar, no human being should be capable of. "What were you planning on doing next, Killing me? Kill Lucy?" Those words struck hard. "Yeah, that's what I was planning to do, and now that I think about it, was I even really prepared to kill them? Would I have had it in me to hurt Lucy? Please, Eric, let him go." "Eric?" My mother knew Mr. Thompson. My eyes widened in horror for the truth I knew was to come. "Well, you see, the thing is, Lucy, I can't let my dear wife's murderer go. You understand that, right?" "Lucy? Why did you just call my mother Lucy?" My eyes automatically averted their gaze to Mr. Thompson. "Oh, she never told you, did she?" His condescending tone made the air thicken. Then, leaning his head to my ear, he said, "Lucy is your mother's middle name, Jack." I couldn't fathom what I was hearing. Why would he call her by that name? And why had she never told me about this? And why did I get the feeling this whole situation was even more complex than I had thought? Please, Eric, just let him go. I'll do whatever you want," my mother uttered as she held back tears. "Oh, now you'll do whatever I want. If I had known all it would take is a gun to this brat's cranium, I would have done this years ago." Tension filled the room. We were no longer just in a house. No, it felt like we were in a blank space that went on for miles. Honestly, the only thing that stopped me from throwing up and fainting was Lucy's arrival. Or rather, her casual arriving was so disturbing, I had forgotten all about wanting to vomit. "Ah, there she is," Mr. Thompson announced, as if commentating at a sporting event. "My beautiful Lucy." Lucy's eyes were plastered to the floor. I knew that she knew that I was looking at her, and yet she couldn't bring herself to spare me the decency of a single look. "Welp, this is awkward. I know what you're thinking, Jack. How does all of this add up? Why is this happening?" "Well, you see, your mother didn't tell you the full story." He gave my mother a cold stare before returning his attention to me. "I'm sure she mentioned everything about your cruel father, but then again, she probably didn't tell you the full story." A wide grin grew slowly on Mr. Thompson's face as he once again looked at my mother. "Did she? You see, a long, long time ago, there were 4 friends in high school. They lived cheerful, normal, everyday lives, loving every moment of their friendship. Things seemed like they would go on forever, that their friendship would last an eternity. But little did they know, nothing lasts." A short pause in Mr. Thompson's story drowned the room. He then continued his story in a creepily cheerful tone, like he was narrating a Disney film. "You see, Jack, one of the friends ended up falling for the other friend. In fact, he fell so deeply in love with her that the mere sight of her beauty could brighten hell. However, he came to learn something that would haunt him. The friend he was in love with did not share the same feelings for him. Actually, she was in love with another one of the 4 friends, and that just so happened to be his best friend. Or to you, your dad." With every word that left Mr. Thompson's mouth, my mother's eyes turned bleaker and bleaker. The boy that had his heart torn out by watching the girl he loved run away with his best friend ended up marrying the 4th friend. Or in other words, the lady you just killed. But, that's not all. You see, the boy that was now a man living his life with a woman he forced himself to pretend to love couldn't shake his true feelings. And so one day, when his wife got pregnant and had a beautiful baby girl, he pointed to Lucy. He named her Lucy. You could say it was his sad and pathetic way of dealing with the pain of his cruel reality. "Stop, Eric, you don't have to do this," my mother interrupted at the top of her voice, only infuriating him further, causing him to press the gun against the back of my head even harder. "Shut it. It's my turn now." Anyways, his disturbingly pleasant narrating voice returned. "The man and his wife had their daughter and continued on as if all were great in the world, overjoyed at the family they had created. Later, the man soon got word that his best friend had a baby as well. However, it wasn't what he expected. You see, your pig of a father had cheated on your mother with some slag and had a child. Your mother, being the kind and beautiful soul she was, took the child in. She accepted all of his disgusting apologies and vowed to start over. She was so in love with him. Even when he hurt her, she would forgive him without a second thought." A long and sad sigh left Mr. Thompson's lungs. "Eventually, they had a child together. That child was you. Oh, and of course when I say he hurt her, in the beginning, I mean like hurt her feelings, you know? However, hurting her feelings turned into hurting her face, quite literally. I assume things had gotten rough in the relationship. Your father was always out drinking at night, after all. That is, when he wasn't fucking some other slut. And so, at the time, naturally, I felt overwhelmed with concern. The woman I adored would pass by me with bruises on her face, not even having the courage to look at me." Mr. Thompson's words grew colder and sharper as he licked his teeth in what appeared to be frustration. My mother didn't say a word. Lucy seemed devoid of all life, and I was just a fly caught in the spider's web. Mr. Thompson then continued. "I thought to myself, I have to do something. I can't just let the woman I love be hurt right in front of my eyes. Now looking back, I wonder if I had made the wrong choice. You see, Jack, I ended up stalking your mother to try and find out a way I could help her. I wanted to catch your father red-handed. I wanted to see him hurt her with my own eyes, so that I would have no regrets. However, what I ended up seeing almost made me want to die. Coincidentally, the day I decided to stalk your mother was the day she decided to become the infamous serial killer. Talk about bad timing. Long story short, despite seeing her become a monster and then later kill your father, I was still in love with her. My selfish feelings for her wouldn't leave me be. In fact, a while after she had killed your father, I decided to confess my feelings to her. After all that time, I chose to finally come out and tell her the way I'd always loved her. I told her that I'd seen what she did, and even with that and the fact that I already had a family, I was willing to run away with her at a moment's notice. But, Jackie boy, she turned me down. And who knows, maybe it was for the better. However, although she had turned me down and I'd adopted her bastard son, I couldn't stop loving her. One more icy pause in his sentence cut a hole in the room. Mr. Thompson proceeded to place his head on my shoulder, still with the gun to my head. I got desperate, Jack. I got oh so very desperate. I made the choice to blackmail her. I filled your brother's head with false hate and even used my own daughter for grotesque gain. And look where it all led us. Your bastard brother is dead, my wife is dead, and now for the first time ever your mother is willing to do whatever I want her to? Isn't this comical? Huh, Jack? What about Lucy? Don't you find that hilarious? His crooked laughter was soaked in pain. After all he had said to us, and the reaction on my mother's face, I could tell that there was no freedom waiting for us. There never was. And yet, the worst was still to come. After settling down a little, Mr. Thompson finally lost it. He demanded an apology from my mother at the price of my life, while I just stood there, scared and alone like a lost child in an amusement park. Noises and movements of all sorts danced around me, and yet, I was alone. Mr. Thompson screamed, my mother cried, and Lucy sat behind all of us, non-existent to the situation, and I just watched, helplessly. After not receiving a satisfactory apology, Mr. Thompson made the final step to madness. The gun he had been holding to my head was a Magnum revolver. I'm not good with guns, and I don't know much about them, but I could tell that it wasn't the kind of gun you'd want to go up against. In all truth, I knew where things were going, and you probably do too. Mr. Thompson proposed a game, that game being Russian roulette. The gun had only one bullet in it, and if my mother chose correctly, he would spare me and her. Though, as hopeful as he made it sound, that wasn't how things ended. No. Although my mother had chosen correctly, much to my luck, Mr. Thompson was no longer in a negotiable state. He slowly turned to my mother, my knees went numb, and I fell to the ground. As my eyes began to shut, the last thing I saw was my mother's lifeless body drop to the floor as well. The bang of the bullet was surprisingly quiet, but I guess that's just because I was too gone to hear a thing. Everything is black. I don't feel anything. No pain, no sadness, no regrets. There's nothing here for me. I wish I could stay here forever. I eventually and unfortunately woke up later on. At that point, I was already dead inside. Life had no more meaning to me. Then again, I wonder if it ever had meaning to me in the first place. Ironically enough, I once more woke up strapped to a chair in Mr. Thompson's basement. Despite the darkness of the room, I immediately recognized where I was. From there on out, I was nothing. I now belonged to the mercy of Mr. Thompson. I know this is going to sound extremely pathetic and uncharacteristic of me, but things weren't actually that bad. They chained me to a metal pole, fed me 3 meals a day, and made sure that I had blankets and even a mattress to sleep on. Though using a bucket to do my business was kinda gross, I got used to it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jack, why not wait for the right moment and attack those bastards? Why are you giving up to those psycho people that killed your mother? Well, I don't expect you to understand. I guess you could say I had had enough. This reality, this life, this prison, it was all I could handle. There's a saying that goes, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. I personally find this saying bogus. What a load of crap, right? Expecting me to just stand up every time I fall and brush myself off like nothing happened? I mean, what if you fall 1,000,000 times? Are you just supposed to pick yourself up 1,000,001 times? Is that it? What if you've fallen so many times that your bones have turned ash? What if you've fallen so many times that your arms no longer want to pull you back up? What if you've fallen so many times that the icy floor becomes a warm bed? What if you've fallen so many times that the sound of nothing has become more soothing than music? What then? Well, at least that's how I felt. Those chains were my new family, and that dark basement was my home. On another note, every once in a while Mr. Thompson would visit. He'd talk about the outside world, a world I had forgotten and no longer cared for. He'd just talk and talk and talk. And although deep down I knew he did it just to mock me and make himself feel better, I simply didn't have the strength nor the will to say a word. The same went for Lucy. She spent a lot of her time with me. She even studied for her entrance exams in the basement. In a way, it was kind of like old times. We spent so much time together. However, no matter how much she talked, what she said, or how many questions he asked, I simply didn't have the strength nor the will to say a word. Though, as time quickly passed, I lost all awareness of time. I lived in darkness, my only light being the lamp that Lucy had placed in the basement for whenever she was with me. I'm not sure how long this went on, but I'm assuming it was a couple of years. How do I know this? Well, not only did I start growing a beard that Lucy would constantly groom, but Lucy had also started college. She was no longer the cute, plain-looking girl of the past. She now not only had a woman's figure, but by the way she talked, I could tell she had gotten really mature. Despite all of this, she was still the Lucy that I had fallen in love with. The situation became my norm, and I figured that it would be like that until I grew old and died. In a way, I was sort of okay with it. Spending time with Lucy, cuddling, playing board games, her keeping me informed about all the boring events of her everyday life. It was like old times. And even though I never said a word, the greatest thing I learned about being with somebody you love is that you don't have to say a word to have a conversation with them. You don't have to talk to feel connected. I guess that's what people mean when they say that love is the connection of souls. Things went on like this, until one fateful day. Lucy came down to feed me my third meal of the day, when I suddenly got the urge to talk. Lucy went on about her day as usual, not expecting me to say a word. And then, I saw her face light up in a way I hadn't seen for so long, as I spoke to her for the first time in years. "So, do you have a boyfriend?" I asked, adjusting my words. Lucy quickly wiped the tears from her eyes and smiled. Boyfriend? Me? No way. You know I'm not good with that kind of stuff." She sniffled with a little giggle at the end. "Oh, that's a shame. You've become really beautiful." As soon as the words left my mouth, her face went rosy red, and mine too. Crap. What was I saying? Now, of all the times, sure, we spent so much time together that we could have passed for a married couple, but that was just because of the predicament we were in. Plus, it's not like I'm in love with her, right? It wouldn't work out anyways, and... Oh, now I remember. The taste of Lucy's lips. I could never describe it, so I simply told myself that's what heaven must taste like. And you know what? I guess I was right. Lucy's lips do taste like heaven. Love, huh? What a wonderful feeling it was. We looked each other in the eyes, and it was almost like our tainted souls were pure again. Even if just for a moment, all the worries, the pain, and the hurt of the world faded away. I felt... how should I put it? It was like soaring through the sky without wings or floating in space without needing air. Yeah, I know. I said that troublesome word. But in that moment, I truly felt loved. I was happy. However, this is sadly not a love story, as I believed I already stated from the start. The story doesn't have a happy ending. We laid together for a while, hugging each other tightly, our hearts beating as one, our souls slowly intertwining. Honestly, if I had died right there, it would have been a happy death. But God has a cruel way of punishing those who won't stand and fight. Tears started flowing down Lucy's face. She reached in her pocket and took out a bunch of keys. This was it. She was going to free me. I know I should have felt happy about this. In fact, I should have been overjoyed, but for some strange reason, I felt sad. It was like I was saying goodbye. "Lucy, you don't have to do this," I said, softly caressing her chin with my hand. She looked me directly in the eyes. Her face sparkled like a starry sky. "Jack, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday. I don't deserve you. I never did." She took a deep breath, doing her best to hold her tears in. "And so, I want you to be happy. I want you to be free. But most of all, I want you to know that I love you. I really do love you, Jack." Before Lucy could even start to unlock my chains, a loud thump erupted from outside. Her father was home. Lucy scurried nervously to unlock my chains, but to no avail. It was as if Mr. Thompson had smelt what was going on. He rushed to the basement with a knife in hand. Lucy struggled to find the right key as Mr. Thompson's tall and dark figure moved closer. "Hey, wait, stop, no, please." Flashbacks of my mother's death hit me repeatedly like bullets to my head. I tried to hold on to Lucy, but he grabbed her and he pulled her away out of my reach. I could see that there was not an ounce of sanity left in his eyes. I was his prized possession, the last shred of my mother, his last reminder of her existence. That was the reason he had kept me alive for all this time. In a sense that my presence was the only thing keeping him sane. To take me away drove him off the edge. And so, once more, I watched helplessly as the person I love was being taken away from me before my eyes. No, stop, please, please, please. I screamed and shrieked, I hollered and I cried, I yelled and I squealed, but he kept going. His blade kept digging into her flesh, her blood kept gushing out, and I kept watching. So this is how it's supposed to end, huh? I guess this is just a punishment for a murderer like me. But you know something? If I'm a murderer, then there's no need to beg for mercy. Oh no. Mr. Thompson stopped to calm himself once he had confirmed her dead. But in his madness, he had forgotten one very important thing. Never lose sight of a predator. Standing behind Mr. Thompson, my body towering over him like God over a mere mortal, my eyes gauged into his empty core, and I greeted him with an oh-so-wide smile that stretched from ear to ear. Now it was my turn. I tore the knife from his clutches and I lunged at him like a psychotic cannibal, clawing, biting, scratching, tearing, stabbing, and ripping at every piece of him that I could get a hold of. When I was done, I looked at a pile of raw flesh and widely dispersed blood, so scrambled and ruined that I couldn't make out Mr. Thompson's face anymore. My predator instincts had saved me once again, and the feeling of satisfaction traveled like a ripple through every cell of my body. With my face covered in cold blood and warm saliva, I hurried to Lucy's side. To my utter surprise, she was still breathing as I held her in my arms. "It's okay. We're fine. Everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna get you out of here, Lucy. Just hold on. I promise I'll get you out of here," I said, hastily, whilst breathing heavily. Running on pure adrenaline and instincts, I wanted to believe that I could save her, but even I knew there was nothing I could do. She'd lost way too much blood, and she was barely holding on. "Jack," she said, as her eyes began to lose their light. "It's okay, Lucy. I'm here. I'm gonna get you out of here. We're gonna leave this place together, okay? Jack, can I stay with you for a while?" Her kind and beautiful brown eyes gazed into mine. In that moment, I knew this was it. Those were the last words she'd ever say. I could no longer contain my emotions, and so without hesitation, as tears poured from my eye sockets uncontrollably, I smiled and said the last words that my dear Lucy would ever hear. "Stay forever." I hate my life. Oh, I know every time I read a story, I'm like, this is the best story I've ever read, but I honestly think this is like one of the best stories I've ever read. I want these to become movies. Like, is that a thing? Is that like something that we can make happen? Like, can this become a movie? Like, can I be Lucy? I just want all of these stories to become like movies that just become famous, because these people deserve it so much. How do you write that? How do you do this? How do you make that? I, in my life, could never write something so amazing. Jesus fucking Christ. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this story as much as I did. I say that every time, but I'm in shock. I'm untalented. Untalented? Is that even a word? I'm untalented and I'm uneducated. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. One of these days, my voice is just gonna leave forever, and it's just not gonna forgive me, and I'm just gonna be fucked forever, because this is my only talent in life, is reading. All right. She hit the decapitated arm. I hate my life. Your serial killer mother that turned you into the Siri.
If you insist.
Your serial killer mother that turned you into this Siri. I swear to fucking God. My voice is fucked. Just saying. This reality. Oh my God, my voice is so gone. I can't finish the story.